Hello, everybody. Whoville Former here, and yeah, I know I'm late. Hey, but due to complications that I have talked about on my community page, the previous idea for the 10,000 subscriber milestone video, a full review of a figure, wasn't gonna plan out. I know, Champ sucks. So instead, milestone in the 1,000 videos are going to be tier list videos because it's the only consistent thing I can think of. Alright, so for the first tier list, for our first milestone, I'm going to be covering the Transformers Toylines. And I have a lot, and as you can probably see, there is a lot here. Now, some of these images are bad, I know, but that's what speaking about them out loud is for. Now, we have a few distinct tiers here. This one kind of speaks for itself. But, that's a little bit much. So, on-site editing. There we go. Oh. So, Transformers. This franchise has been around for nearly 40 years. Don't worry, don't worry. I have a special idea planned for the 40th anniversary. I am planning to upload a full video on that. But this is not it. You could consider it a lead up, but it certainly is not. Now, do I plan on doing all these by myself? No. Oh, do I plan to rope some people into this, possibly or possibly not against their will in the future? Also probably. But I think for the first one, we should just start with my opinions by themselves, which, by the way, are my opinions. You're free to go on Tiermaker yourself and look this up and find up and sort these yourselves. But until then, you're under my opinion roof. So, we're all civil people here. We can treat each other's opinions with a little bit of respect. Okay, so starting off with the first one, G1, the very original, the one that set the precedence for the entire franchise going forward, aside from the comics. Now, I know, heresy, downright blasphemy, but I like my figures with more than 5 points of articulation. Okay? I was grown in the very standards of the 2000s. So this, yeah, not cutting it. Yeah, not cutting it. Fun fact, at the minute I got my Kingdom Ravage, the Beast Wars Ravage, I did my darnest to sell that dang G1 on Ravage as fast as I could. I cannot stand Ravage. Don't get me wrong, it has some points in history, but again, my opinion. Thus, G1 is saying right the hell down here and will not move up. Ever. So, next is Headmasters, which I guess I'm just defining in America as the Headmaster year. This goes exactly down there with G1 for the exact same reasons. And so does Master Force, Victory, especially because region only figures, and Zone. But then again, who even really cares about Zone? So yeah. Well, that was quick and easy. G1 completely out of the way. Now, let's actually give some stuff where posability was actually introduced into this franchise properly. From the most unlikely of places, Generation 2. Me personally, I have not handled any of the actual ball-jointed G2 figures myself, but I will say it set the precedence, a better precedence than G1 itself. So it's going to be going into all its eye, and it will be there. and that will be the benchmark going forward. Now we've moved on to Beast Wars. This is a toy line. I have handled several of the figures from it. Of course, all of them not the characters that are actually in the show, because why would you want to buy those when you have the modern toys to do that? And we're having our very early GOAT. Now, of course, OG Beast Wars had its own problems. Lots of them. Still laden with gimmicks. Most of them him good, some of them him not so good, and the rest of them bad and obtrusive to the entire design of the figures that were made. But still, very nearly peak, almost out of the gate after Generation 2. Now we're going to Beast Wars 2nd. Sadly, this one must also go into scrap metal, along with the entirety of Generation 1. Reason being, the only two new molds out of this entire toy line were Lio Convoy and Galvatron. Everybody else was repaints, or, in some cases, the exact same figure as in America. That is lazy. Thankfully, though, we take a step back up with Beast Wars Neo. This finally had a bevy of new molds for them to use, and gave birth to the greatest quad. Does he count as a quad changer? Yeah, as one of the greatest quad formers, Magmatron, which I am so thankful was redone in Legacy United. But we'll get to that later. As for Beast Wars Neo, it can go in nice under Beast Wars Neo. It is Beast Wars Neo. I meant the original Beast Wars. But sadly, we must go straight back down to Mediocre Town with Beast Machines. Yeah, no, this is going at the top of scrap metal. It's worse than G1 because the toys it offered did not help the show itself. In fact, the toys were almost as awful as the animation itself. But then again, that's getting into the show, and well, that's an entirely another video to go through. Now we're on to Robots in Disguise, 2001, as I like to distinguish it, car robots. And this was, it is meh. It was mostly G1 figures, repainted, repainted, G1 and G2, and even some of the figures from Beast Machines that never actually made it to print, and i.e. the giant Galvatron head. The Galvatron, Megatron. Ugh. God, doing these in scripted sucks. Yeah. That's Robots in Disguise. And honestly, very similar to the show itself. It was mostly filler. Next we get into one of the most infamous toy lines, Transformers Armada. Now, unfortunately, you know what? No, I can't. I have to make one. I have to make a new one. I have to make an entirely new one. And that new one will be ill. And that is where Transformers Armada will squarely go. So, as the second toy line of Transformers, the Transformers anime years, not very great. Literally 95% of the toy line was kneecapped by gimmick over function. Case in point, the Destroyer of Worlds, also known as Armada Hotshot. thank God Legacy Evolution came and fixed that. So much. But there were still figures from OG Armada that were good. Though that number was so small, that is why it lands it squarely in ugh tier. Next is one you might not expect. Transformers Universe 2003. This was the first iteration of the universe branding ending. This one is just mostly repaints. It's mostly repaints from Rid 2001, from Rid 2000, from Rid 2001, from Armada, and from Beast Wars. So there's not really much to talk about other than the story of it, which was about Unicron infecting people throughout infecting guys throughout the multiverse. The only real instance I can remember of that off the top of my head is the Silverbolt they had, which was purple and green with a smidgen of silver that represented the infection, which was an odd choice. I would have thought lime green would be the infection point. Now, Transformers Energon, a toy line unfortunately attached to an overall dumpster fire of a show. But you know what? It's not that bad. The toy line is actually surprisingly more bearable than the show itself. If you ignore Ironhide, which I do, and therefore that is, well, in the words of Jeff Goldblum, there it is. Okay, now we finally come to peak. Transformers Cybertron. Now, I may be biased talking, because I was the exact age demographic for this. But this is GOAT. This is Primus tier. This is Primus tier right off the bat. The gimmicks for this toy line were not intrusive at all. In fact, they were integrated into places in the figures that they would not intrude upon the posability. Mostly. But it was still good. It was also gave us our first Primus figure. And no, I'm not counting the Japanese one. That's just lazy. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Armada gave us our first Unicron. But moving on. We have Transformers Classics. This was the first attempt to modernize G1. And it's alright. Oh no, it's better than G2 definitely, but it's alright. I mean, I still have the Optimus on my list. I still have the Classics Optimus on my list, and maybe the Grimlock. If not as Grimlock, then as Overkill. But still, it's pretty serviceable. Oh, now we come to my greatest childhood. Transformers, the 2007 movie toy line. I had so many of these, it's not even funny. In fact, thankfully, the ones that have survived are the ones that I've intended to. Those being the characters that weren't even in the movie in the first place. Ace. And were just relegated to the comics. So, this one is a GOAT, for sure. But is it better than Beast Wars? Better than... Nah. Not as good as Beast... Not better than Beast Wars. Sorry, I got my text. Oh, this one. Transformers Animated. Oh, the toy line. This, compared to the Unicron trilogy, this is the second greatest attempt at trying to emulate screen to toy. Now, of course, it wasn't perfect like the Unicron trilogy was because the designs were simplified, and therefore didn't have as many stick out parts that told you, oh, this turns into a truck, oh, this turns into a car, but they made it work. They made it work. And I am so glad that all these years later, I finally have the original Voyager Optimus. The Voyager Optimus from this toy line was a grail of mine for a long time, and thanks to TFCon, I was finally able to get it. No, wait, actually, it was the eBay. TFCon failed me in that regard. So yeah, this is another Primus here, for sure. My only regret is that I gave away most of the ones that I had in this toy line. Moving on to the second run of Transformers Universe, 2008. Now, this one was a step up from the original. Definitely a step up from the original, because it wasn't all repaints. It was actually some new molds. But it was still kind of, it's still kind of meh. Yeah, so we'll just put it in between that. Oh, Revenge of the Fallen. Oh, now this one. Oh, this one was magical. This one, I am still hunting down all of the non-movie characters from this toy line to this day. This is the one I believe I have the most nostalgia for in terms of toy lines. But it's still an only GOAT. No, but it's still an only GOAT. Because, well, they didn't actually have that many original characters in this toy line. It was actually in the next one where they had that abundance of non-movie characters. But yeah, it is definitely improvement on the original. Next was Transformers, which just only had the branding of just the name of the franchise. But this was in 2010. Yeah, this was in 2010. This one was where it was like a revamp of some of the classics figures with some new ones, mixed in with some movieverse figures under the branding Hunt for the Decepticons, which was also coincidentally the toy line that brought back the rub signs. This one is definitely the GOAT. All of the ones from this I am hunting to this day. I still yearn for that lug nut with all of my body and soul. Oh, also sea spray. Now, next up is Transformers Generations, which would be the colloquial term for all toy lines going forward from this point, which is kind of tricky because there was a lot of things in early Generations. So I'm just gonna. So basically, this portion of Generations consists of all the original things they did and the War for Cybertron figures. Before Studio Series Gamer Edition came along. This is another Primus tier. This is another Primus. Well, actually, no. This is a GOAT. This is a GOAT. Oh, definitely above OG Beast Wars. Transformers Prime. Now, this consists of both the first edition and the Robots in Disguise sub print, which just made the naming convention even more confusing. But still, this one, I'm just gonna put in nice. I would put it in GOAT, because after all these years, actually thanks to TFCon this time, I was able to get my other grails, Prime First Edition Bulkhead and First Edition Optimus. But sadly, due to the combining factors of me dumbassedly giving away my Cliff Jumper for a Combiner Wars Armada Megatron, as well as the fact that most of the RID toy line was mid. RID mid. Yeah, that's not a phrase that makes sense. Yeah, sadly, this is only going to have to be a nice. Definitely above Neo, but still not in GOAT. Dark of the Moon. This was when the movieverse toys of non-movie characters was dialing down to almost the non-existence portion that you'd see in the final two films of the Bayverse saga. So yeah, it was nice. Actually, no, it's an I. It's an I in between G2 and Classics. Because much as everyone likes to say, ooh, this was good, we should bring it back, I despise mech tech. I cannot stand mech tech. All of the ones that didn't lock in, that was even the easiest fix. That could have been the easiest fix. Have the mech tech weapons have the ability to lock into the second mode and not just be based on springs. I hate it. I hated it in Dark of the Moon Toyline. I hated it in Prime Robots in Disguise, especially since most of them were made out of translucent plastic. Jeez, that was a bad call. Rescue Bots. Unfortunately, this has to go at the very bottom of scrap metal because this is a kiddie toy line. I'm sorry, Rescue Bots. I love you as a show, but as a toy line, Rescue Heroes, you are not. We're getting into the second phase of Generations with the Fall of Cybertron subprint. This was very nice. I still even have some of these figures to this day, which will inevitably be waiting for the inevitable Gamer Editions to come and replace them. But still, some of them, so good, I might even keep them. Speaking of, War for Cybertron on Deluxe Megatron, I still have him. If not for the fact that I custom painted it, but still, that one's so good, I'm still keeping it. And when the inevitable Shockwave Gamer Edition comes around, I may still keep the Fall of Cybertron Shockwave. It's just that good. But thank God I got rid of that Grimlock. That was kneecapped by lack of budget. Transformers Go is next up, and yeah, this is going down here with everything. If you haven't guessed, all the Japanese stuff goes down here. Now, I will say, I will give it up slightly. I'll put it around where Victory and Zone are, because this was almost, I believe, entirely the new molds, because it was a separate show from a separate continuity that's not even in continuity. Insert joke about a line continuity here, but now we can finally move on to Beast Hunters. Now I put this here, even though it's still technically part of the Prime Robots in Disguise line. I like to think it's separate, despite the many retools it had. But it did give us characters that the other one didn't. It gave us Shockwave, it gave us Smokescreen, and it gave us all the Predacons. And I still have most of those Predacons to this day. So, it'll bottom of its eye. Bottom of its eye, it feels right. Predacons Rising. Now, this is primarily a toy line of repaints. Except for the giant Predaking they did give us, which is more to scale for my taste. And it did give us Skylynx and Darksteel. But still, they were repaints of Skystalker and Grimwing. So, unfortunately, this is going to have to be in repaints. But unlike Universe 2003, these are repaints with purpose. It's repaints of figures of characters that weren't on screen into characters that were on screen. Oh, Age of Extinction. This one I have so much beef with. This started it all. all of the kitifying of the one-step changers, three-step changers, pullback figures, all of the kitty bull scrap that permeates most of the toy lines to this day that I despise. Now, I'm not saying that Transformers should be exclusively for the young adult to adult collectors. I'm not going to gatekeep like that. But that's what certain toy lines like Rescue Bots and a certain future one are for. You shouldn't have to permeate the kitty crap in the main stuff. And also, this was when the figures of characters that weren't in the movie at all sadly took a downward spiral into basically only a handful. So sadly, this will go in above Armada, but still. Thrilling. Oh, Thrilling 30. This has to go in Primus tier. Here, this was when we had the Renaissance era of Transformers toy lines. Thrilling 30, I still keep some to this day. Hey. Oh, man. That Retrek, man. That Tankor. What'd you think? Would you believe? Tankor, the only Beast Machines character in that entire anniversary toy line. But again, even though it was heavily IDW coded, Generations Thrilling 30 was still G1. It was still G1. Generations was still not a plural. Robots in Disguise 2015. Sadly, this is another toy line that was permeated by the kitty crap. And unfortunately, there was so much of it, it decreased the budget of the actual quality figures. But because I am much like my opinions on the show itself, I am not going to put it anywhere below meh. Is it better than Dark of the Moon? No. But it is better than these. And in fact, surprisingly, this toy line also had figures of characters that weren't in the show at all as well, which definitely surprised me. Because those figures of characters that weren't in the show were actually pretty good, and I'm still looking to get them. The Jet one, the red, white, blue one, and the Twin Inferno they had, still looking to get those. Though it is a shame that the toys are not to scale. That Optimus Prime irks me. I even got the Japanese Adventure Optimus, and he's the opposite extreme. He's too big. He's far too big. But moving on, now we get to the first installment of the first toy line trilogy, which had never been done before. This was Combiner Wars. This was a kick in the teeth in a good way. This was what Transformers needed. This brought back Combiners back into the zeitgeist with all new updates. With the first iteration of a perfect system of Voyager torsos and deluxe limbs. Depending on their plans for Combiners in the future after Menasor or revamp in Evolution, I don't know if many of them will survive. Well, I mean, Victorion most assuredly will survive. Being reselled, which she never will. Because that actually is a good point. Combiner Wars also gave us our first female Combiner. Granted, from what I've heard about, they're not exactly the most explorative characters, but still, it was a milestone-ish. Titan's Return. Ooh, this one. This brought back Headmasters with a stupid name, Titan Masters. Now, I get it. I get what it was going for. They're called Titan Masters because they can fit onto the Titans of this wave, of this toy line, which would be those being Fort Max and Trypticon. Oh yeah, and I forgot, Thrilling 30 finally gave us a modern Metroplex. But I don't understand. I'm sorry to most people. The actual Headmaster characters, those are great, but unfortunately, this is going to have to be in noise only because of the needless conversion of legacy characters into Headmasters. And yes, I'm still calling it Headmasters because Titan Masters is a stupid name. And also the conversion of other characters and the Voyager price point to triple changers. I really do not understand that. And giving any upcoming possibility of a modern generation's broadside out the window. Oh, still don't have that Octane though. I mean, I know his name was named Octone at that time because they didn't have the license, but I'm still calling Octane because Octone sounds stupid. Just like Scrapnel is one of the two stupid names, alternate names for Shrapnel. Oh. Sharpshot doesn't even work as a name for him, and Scrapnel could be the name of a variant of him. I don't know. The Last Night. Now, this, funny enough, is a similar situation to Transformers Energon. The toy line wasn't bad, but the movie it was attached to was. And I actually will put it over Energon. In fact, most of its designs laid the groundwork for Studio Series. But back to the Toyline trilogy, we have the finale with Power of the Primes. The Power of the Primes, thank Primus himself, we're actually going to get proper Prime figures next year. Because this was just a disgrace. It was like they had no idea other than what they did with the Prime Masters to bring back Pretenders. But as Target Masters? What? I don't understand. If essentially this was just picking up the leftover slack from Titans from Combiner Wars. Because it gave us Predaking. It gave us Abominus. By the way, Joe Hasbro, still waiting for that Abominus. It's been like 6 years. Where is he? But it is still good. It's better than Titans Return, certainly. Not as good as Combiner Wars, but it is definitely better than Titans Return. It also gave us the full first proper combiner of the Dinobots in Volcanicus, and thank God we've moved on from the Beast because that thing was horrifying. Now, Studio Series. This, if you had told me in 2007 that they would have a toy line of hyper screen accurate to the extent of molding and not necessarily paintwork of the figures of the characters from the movies, I would have called you insane and had you thrown in an insane asylum. But now that it's here, I love this thing. I love this toy line. It is not missed. I mean, yes, it had that one major miss that we will never talk about ever again until Joe Hasbro fixes it, even though I know they won't. They have just, aside from that, and a few minor hiccups, it has just had hit after hit after hit after hit. Which then led to Studio Series 86. Which was also a massive idea. And and the surprise of Gamer Edition earlier last year, that was completely unexpected. and opened the avenue even more. And more so this year, the idea of making figures of concept art, which thank God gave us one of the best Megatrons of this year. Studio Series is so good. 86 made it better. Gamer Edition made it goated. And now I hopefully hope it keeps trudging along. But, and I don't care about the controversy, by its mandate, Studio Series is required to give us at least one Skids and Mudflap. I don't care about the character controversy. I do not care. It is in their mandate. I don't even need them as the ice cream truck. Just give us them once, and then you never have to do them ever again. Better be watching, Joe Hasbro. Next is Cyberverse. Now again, like with Age of Extinction and last night, Robots in Disguise 2015 before it, this is one filled with kitty garbage. And unfortunately, some of the kitty garbage is of characters that have never had proper toys before. For example, Rung. No, not Rung. Rack and Ruin. I was sorely tempted to buy that gimmick-laden thing when I first saw it. Oh ye holy God, I was so tempted. Thank God I didn't. And I'm still holding out the Joe Hasbro, maybe for this new line of figures, based off the Marvel Comics cast. Maybe perhaps they could be there in a possible Comic Wreckers set. I mean, just saying, they recently just came out with Straxus, and Emirate Zaron and Flame. So use a bunch from that to do a new mold or something. I don't know. But anyway, back to Cyberverse. I will say, I did buy almost every single one. Sadly, I missed out on the Prowl. I'm still looking for him. But still, this goes to the same place as Ace's Robots in Disguise 2015. Sadly, unlike them, their catalog for figures is not of the proper figuring making. I'm at a loss for proper words right now. That Robots in Disguise had was sadly middling, which basically left Legacy to pick up the slack. But still, they were very good molds, despite not being mostly size accurate, but still. The Bumblebee movie toy line. After Studio Series had come out, I'm sorry, this is going in scrap metal. There was absolutely no point as to having movie-specific toy lines anymore, because the better version was in Studio Series. And yes, that is mostly biased. I do not care. You cannot say there were any good toys in the Bumblebee toy line. It was mostly just kitty garbage. And worst of all, they had figures of characters that were not in the movie at all, that maybe, in some alternate universe, should have been in the movie. And I do expect a Bumblebee movie Barricade as a concept figure in Studio Series later, Joe Hasbro. Okay, skipping ahead a bit. You already see it. Bots. This is going at the very bottom. This is worse than Rescue Bots. This is absolutely worse than Rescue Bots. I know this is kitty garbage, and I'm glad that it's kitty garbage, and not kitty garbage that is permeating a main line. But still, why is this a thing? This doesn't even make sense. God. I hate this concept. I hate the toys. I hate the show. And I do not understand how a friend of mine in a Transformers-related Discord actually likes this franchise. I do not understand. I cannot. But now, we're getting back into the second trilogy of this franchise with the War for Cybertron trilogy, starting with Siege. This was goated. Straight off the bat, this was goated. Cybertronian forms, we had never gotten a main line for this. It was always just BotCon repaints, or retools, and the like. But now we finally have a toy line for it, and it was good. It wasn't Primus tier, but it was good. And it gave us our modern Omega Supreme, which was very much needed. Rescue Bots Academy goes below Rescue Bots, but over Bots. Because, yet again, it's the exact same thing. Again, Rescue Heroes, you are not. Earthrise is next up, and this was the much-needed improvement. But I will sadly have to put it below Siege and Nice, because it was sadly kneecapped by the pandemic at the time. Now, which is sadly something that can't be controlled, but still, it did impact my perception of the toy line as a whole. Next, the final part of the War for Cybertron trilogy, Kingdom. This was peak. It was on the anniversary of the 86 movie. It was also on the anniversary of Beast Wars. It was like Harmony in motion. Although that did mean that characters that probably should have been in Studio Series ended up in Kingdom, which to this day leaves Studio Series 86 very sparse of Decepticons at all. But still, it was very good. It gave us an update on classic Beast Wars, and now after all this, and then after a few toy lines later, the season 1 cast is finished, and we finally moved on to the season 2 cast with Beast Wars Silverbolt. I just can't wait for Quick Strike, because I do not want to have the original Quick Strike. That thing has clear plastic in essential pieces in places, and I do not want to have to deal with that. Now, moving on to something that is a sleeper hit, in my opinion. Transformers Collaborative. This was completely unexpected, but welcomed. A toy line made of original characters, using previous molds, but still out of various franchise things as a sort of crossover. The DeLorean from Back to the Future, the Ecto-1 from Ghostbusters, the X-Jet from X-Men, by the way, still need to get that. The Jet from Top Gun. I mean, I don't really know who likes Top Gun that much, but it was welcome, and I still got the figure. Jurassic Park. That was a stroke of genius, I must say. I still need to get that Mars moon rover Optimus, but that thing's sold out as hell, and I still haven't got I really wish I'd gotten my hands on him when I did. Next is Generation Selects. A perfect idea to finally keep Buffer and Basic Filler out of the main toy lines by just giving the repaints and slight retools just a toy line of their own. But with the added addendum of it being mostly made up of obscure characters that not most fans would know of. Next is Premium Finish. Premium Finish, I only ever had the one, being the Bumblebee Optimus, because I couldn't get my hands on the original because that was scalped to absolute buggery. But still, this was very good. If it weren't for the fact that I had the time and patience to just paint figures myself. Next is the Headmaster. The Headmaster Remaster, as I like to call them. Or Retro Headmasters. Kind of similar to what Marvel's been doing now with their Retro Spider-Man and now recently Iron Man and things. This has been very helpful. I finally have all of the G1 Headmaster Autobots and Decepticons, but I am planning on getting rid of some of them and replacing them with these, because these Retro Headmasters are essentially the Headmaster show accurate ones. And you know how I love me some show accuracy. So, while unfortunately this is going in repaints, it does go above premium finish. Oh. Oh boy. Transformers Red. When Transformers joined the fad of everybody trying to copy Marvel Legends. I am grateful for the RC. Because, you know, she's my wife. But other than the Megatron I have of it, just being a stand-in for when I can actually muster up the money to get the APC Toys Dark Master, and not the clear plastic one, the proper one, because I'm not dealing with clear plastic, especially not on a third party. Unfortunately, this sank and failed. It had some good ones, but unfortunately, this is worse than Armada. This was basically the second renaissance of Action Masters, essentially. Except we realized early enough that this was dumb and stopped it before it could go any further. Which means that Grimlock that was teased never saw the light of day. Okay. These figures, I forget what they're properly called, but so I'm just going to call them the Walgreen figures. The Walgreen figures. These are the ones that you can always find at Walgreens. They're hollowed out. They have hollowed out parts. They have flimsy plastic. I got the Jetfire just to test it out, and I couldn't stand it. This is garbage. This is absolute garbage. I couldn't even keep the Jetfire I had to serve as a generic Autobot. It's that bad. Shattered Glass is another stroke of genius. Finally giving mostly readily access as to fans of the Shattered Glass as characters, and in the updated figure molds from Earth from Siege going forward. I've gotten Flame War or Soundwave, and the Wheeljet and the Sideswipe. I have Rodimus 2-pack. And already I want to get the rest of them. I'm sad to say that I didn't get my chance at the reissue of the Optimus Ratchet 2-pack when I could, nor did I get a chance at Megatron, which I sorely want. But now we've come to the new golden age of figures in the third Toyline trilogy with Legacy. This was Primus Tier straight out the gate. I don't care what anybody says. And so was Legacy Evolution that came out of it. Maybe as a mid-subscriber or milestone own of like 1,500, I'll do tier lists for each individual figure. Who knows? Earthspark. Sadly, like all of the televised shows before it, Robots in Disguise and Cyberverse, this is one filled with kitty crap. But some of the kitty crap is actually not that bad. If it weren't for the fact that they're coming out with some of their final figures of the Warrior class, of the Deluxe class, as for Thrash and Jawbreaker, I would say this goes below these two. But because of that, I'm gonna have to. Now, I will admit, 50% of it is just repaints and reuses of Cyberverse's molds. But for Megatron and Optimus, they actually did. Megatron, Optimus, and Bumblebee and Grimlock, they did actually change them somewhat. But because of the absolute idiocy that was their idea for Prowl, this is unfortunately going to have to go in the middle. And I will have a specific short for Earthspark's End when that eventually comes up. I mean, I'm not sure if all the episodes are out right now for season 2, but if they are, you can expect a short about that in the future. Rise of the Beast mainline. Now, surprisingly, this actually had a few good molds, and by that I mean 2, maybe 3. I still have yet to get the Optimist to add to my Prime Shrine, but still, this again serves no purpose. It's because Studio Series exists. And then we have Legacy United. This is from the Legacy trilogy. It started good. It got better. It got even better. This is the only trilogy toy line that has all been in Primus tier. And now for some 2 stragglers. Masterpiece. I cannot be bothered with Masterpiece. I was at one point in time with the Beast Wars figures, but then I decided I didn't want to sell my kidneys just to get figures whose backs aren't even paid attention to. You can blame Jobby for that mindset. And then finally, one nobody would ever expect to see on a tier list like this. Transformers crossover. Both Star Wars and Marvel. Now, me personally, due to my reignited love for Marvel, I am mostly pulling towards the Marvel side. Because I do personally believe that all the Iron Man figures are goated. But this will just be at the bottom of I. And there you go, folks. That is the 1000 milestone video. Comprehensive tier list of Transformers toy lines. I'm sure I left out some middling ones that probably don't matter in the slightest. But hey, that just leaves it open for you. Leave in the comments if I missed any. Speaking of, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also hit that bell icon for the notifications. And thank you for sticking with me. This has been Whovel Former, and I'm looking forward to the next 1000 subscribers. And for those first 1000 of you that got this channel to that point, I genuinely say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. So, to all of you, I'll own Z till all are one.